Welcome back to Access Anime. I'm Henshin Ikeda, and today I'll be doing a walkthrough review of Magi Episode 3. Now, if you remember from last episode, we have Aladdin and Alibaba in front of a door that looks like it leads to the end of the dungeon, but we don't know where they're transported to. So that's where we're left off there. Now, again, Morgana, Jamal, and Goltez, they're alive, and they've been left behind. Now, also, I should point out, Jamal has Aladdin's flute, which has the Dajin Hugo in it. So Aladdin does not have his flute. But let's dive right into this anime review and walkthrough. Now again, I'll hold my rating and my general comments at the end of this clip, so stay tuned. But let's dive right in. Now again, we open up this episode almost exactly where we left off, with Aladdin and Alibaba in this other world. Now it is outside, it appears like it's outside, but it's inside the dungeon, so if that makes sense, there you are. They're outside, but they're inside the dungeon. And we see a pit appear out of nowhere, like a flame pit, just like appear out of nowhere, and it has like statues of dragons around it, so that's kind of interesting, but I don't really know the meaning behind that. But again, we are still in the dungeon. Now we see Jamal beating the crap out of Morgana, so we're taken to a different scene where we see Jamal and Morgana. Now not so much of Goltez, he's kind of slightly looks like he's about to die type of appearance. Now we see again Jamal beating the crap out of Morgana, and you see these yellow monsters saying the word brainless. Now I believe they were just repeating what Jamal was saying, and it just annoys the heck out of me. They keep saying brainless, brainless, brainless. So again, it annoyed the heck out of me. Now we're taken to a different scene where we see Aladdin and Alibaba on Aladdin's flying turban. That turban he has on his head, it's like a magic carpet. They're flying on it. And Alibaba expresses a lot of interest toward Aladdin, like he wants to know more about him, more about Hugo. So it's kind of interesting. And while he's on that topic, apparently Aladdin tells Alibaba, well, Hugo told me where we were at. He's told me a little about some of these dungeons, and right now we're passing over Norcopolis. I hope I pronounced that right. Necropolis, which is the city of the dead. So right now they're flying over all these empty houses, and it looks like they're outside, but they're still in the dungeon. But again, this is the city of the dead they're passing over. And they're heading toward what appears to be the end of the dungeon, where all the gold, swords, shields, what have you, are held. And that's where we're left off seeing them head toward. Now, once we see Aladdin and Alibaba enter the building, we get a surprise. Now, I didn't think Goltez would actually catch up with them. And again, Goltez is the guy that looks like Jason from Friday the 13th. He's got like a machete and he has the mask. Looks pretty cool. Now, he just falls down and he looks like he's dead. He's got scorch marks in the front. He's got all those stab wounds on his back from Jamal stabbing him. And again, we see Jamal and Morgana, they've caught up. So this is kind of interesting. Now, right off the bat, I assume there's going to be like a one-on-one confrontation, because Alibaba, he's ready to go, so he's going to take on Jamal. Now Aladdin's been cut off, he's all the way in the side. It looks like he's somewhat knocked out, but we're not sure. He might still be very hungry, so he might need to replenish his energy. But either way, Jamal orders Morgana to take care of Aladdin, to watch him kill him. We don't really know. I'm assuming to watch over him. And now Goltez, again, he is passed out for the count. It looks like he's dead. I'm just going to put it that way. It looks like he's dead, but he's not. Now we're taken on a one-on-one confrontation, Jamal versus Alibaba. This is what I was kind of looking forward to. Now it looks like Alibaba's going to get his butt kicked by Jamal, because Jamal mentions he's going to switch into this sword style position that he's taken so many years to master from the royal family. So he's been schooled on how to, duel professionally by the royal family. But this was kind of a shocker. Now we see Alibaba in the king stance. It's like another interesting royal family technique, I think, but it's called the king stance. And Jamal does not know how Alibaba knows this. He's actually starting to question, how do you know this? Are you royalty? You see Alibaba about to self-explain how he knows all this, but we don't get a lot of closure on that. So now we're starting to wonder, who is Alibaba? What's his real background? Now again, Alibaba says this interesting phrase to Jamal, which really pisses him off. He says, go home if you, he just says, go home, boy. It was kind of funny. Like, go home if you're scared, boy. I'm like, whoa. Called him boy? Yeah. That really kind of pissed Jamal off. But anyways, they're fighting, and it looks like Alibaba's gonna win. He's really good with this dagger. It's all over the place, and he's got Jamal pretty scared. But again, Jamal backs away and he calls for Morgana's help. She leaps over with one jump, amazingly, and now she's on top of, well, she was on top of Alibaba, but she was actually standing with Jamal. Jamal gives Morgana his sword and says, finish him off. Now, she really wasn't hesitant. She was all the way on top of him with the sword. So now Alibaba's on the staircase, and he's not feeling good because he just got his butt whooped by Morgana, and he's about to die at the hands of Morgana with the sword that belongs to Jamal. Now, this was kind of surprising. Out of nowhere, we see Aladdin appear with a new weapon in his hands. We don't know what it looks like. Well, it looks like a staff, but it's like all rock form shaped. It looks like something from Sailor Moon, like a staff with little feathers on top of it, so that's kind of interesting. But again, we don't know the name of this, only that he definitely defeats Morgana. And this is what's interesting. Morgana wasn't really going to kill Alibaba, to my knowledge. She was hesitant to stab him. But anyways, her sword's been shattered by Aladdin, and Aladdin uses his magic to put her in a ball shape, I guess. Like, you see magic surrounding Morgana, and she's up in midair. And Jamal is just really freaking out. But this gets even more interesting. We find out a little more about Jamal. This is a little more ahead of where we're at, but Jamal starts to say, I know everything about you, Magi, because 10 years ago, well, 10 years in the past, like 10 years ago, my master told me all about you. He told me that you'd make me a king. And we really don't know what he meant by this, but we do know that Jamal was like prophesized that he'd become king by his master. We don't know who the heck his master is. There was no name given. But that's kind of interesting. Now, out of nowhere, this Dajin appears called Amon. Now, just before he appears, we see Aladdin skimping over to Jamal, says, give me my flute. So now he's got his flute back. So his Dajin Yugo is now his again. And this is interesting. As soon as that happens, you see this magical being appear. Like I said, his name is Amon. He is the Dajin of the maze. And I was like, wow. Interesting how they give these characters like their shapes and such. Apparently he uses fire, and he's the ruler of this maze, of the dungeon. So we find that out. At the same time, we see Hugo appear out of Aladdin's flute, just without his head, and he's trying to talk to Amon. But, you know, they're doing body language, and apparently Amon knows what he's talking about. And we also get to find out more about Aladdin, because apparently Aladdin asks Amon, well, who am I? It's like, why am I so special? And along those lines. And Amon says, well, a Magi is a wizard who chooses the next king. So now we know what a Magi really is. And to make it even more interesting, Amon's looking around in the dungeon. He looks at Goltez, Morgana, and Jamal, and he says, yeah, you guys aren't going to be the next king. Looks at Aladdin, automatically knows that he's a Magi. It's like, oh, Magi, you know. He knows who he is. And then he looks to Alibaba. He's like, he's going to be the next king? He's like kind of confused, like, really? That kid? He's going to be the next king? But that's where we're at there. And just when that happens, and we get a little more update on Amon and Yugo, like they do their little body language talk, the dungeon's attacked from the outside by a guy named Judal. And just a little more update on who Judal is, because we don't know who this guy is who's attacking this dungeon from the outside. He's another Magi. So there's another Magi besides Aladdin in this series. And he's on a flying carpet. And now this is interesting. The guy that's next to him is the master of Judal, the guy that was from Judal's past. He's sitting on the flying carpet. Now again, Jamal knows nothing about this. He doesn't know his master's outside. But again, the guy on the flying carpet is Jamal's old master, and the guy on the flying carpet that's attacking the dungeon is Judal, another Magi. Now apparently he destroys the dungeon, and he's making sure no one wins the prize or the Dajin from this dungeon. So to his knowledge, the building's been destroyed and he's flying away. So in his mind, the dungeon's been destroyed and there are no survivors. Now while this is happening, you see Amon basically saying, everyone get into the transporter, I'll transport you guys out of here. And that's where he's at. So you see Aladdin, Alibaba heading toward the teleport, whatever that teleportation thing is, and they're ready to teleport out. Now we do a little cutscene where you see Jamal, Morgana, and Goltez. Now this is interesting. Goltez basically admits to Morgana, you know, he's done a lot of bad things, but that's no reason why you should stay behind. You should go, you're free. And he basically takes Jamal, puts his master on his shoulders, and he basically makes a run for it. Because he's like, Jamal, he's done so many bad things, he's going to stay here, he's going to die with me. You know, I'm a slave, I did a lot of bad things against my will. This is the first time we're actually hearing him talk, by the way. And he's trying to, I guess, amend his sins and just take, you know, while this dungeon is collapsing, he's going to take out himself and his master with him. And while all this is happening, Goltez actually takes his sword out and frees Morgana. Her chains have been cut, and now she's heading toward the transporter. And you do a small little scene where you see Jamal on the shoulders of Goltez, and a rock from the ceiling kills them. At least that's what I see. You know, it looks like it's killed them. And the other three just teleported out of there. Now you see the Dajin, Amon, basically transport himself with Alibaba onto his dagger. So now Amon is part of Alibaba's dagger. It's got a little crust on there. And of course, Hugo is back in the flute with Aladdin. Now when they're transported out, all three of them are transported in different locations. Morgana is outside of the city, and Alibaba, he's one. Apparently everyone sees him right where the dungeon used to be. It's now vanished. He has the gold, he's got like bags of gold behind him, and you have all these people watching him from the pits above, saying yay, congratulating him. But where is Aladdin? This is where Aladdin is. We see him on a field of grass, approached by, well, he's passed out, but he's approached by people on, like, men on horseback. We don't know who these guys are. So that's where we're left there. Now, I should back up a little. Alibaba basically said once he, you know, wins this dungeon, he's going to go to Sandria, which is another country, I guess, and go to where Sinbad made his fortune. So Sinbad's another character in this series, and again, Alibaba wants to go to Sandria once he beats the dungeon and gets all this money. But first, he has to go to something called the Boldbad, Balbad. So I don't know what Boldbad is, but he's got some business there to take care of. And that's where we generally end the series. Generally end the anime episode for today. Now, what I don't understand, we know nothing about Judel, this other Magi. So he's flown off, believing that no one survived when he destroyed this dungeon. So that's kind of interesting. Now, final thoughts right now. Who is Judel, other than he's a Magi, and the guy that's with him on his magic carpet, other than we know he's Jamal's old master? That's about it. Where did Aladdin actually end up, and who are those guys on the horseback? Also, is Morgana going to join Alibaba now, and are they going to go search for Aladdin? We don't know. Also, what business does Alibaba have in Boldbad, as well as what is Alibaba's real background in this series? Who is he? Is he royalty, nobility? How did he know the king stance, which is that sword style? That's kind of interesting. And I have to know, is Jamal and Goltez really dead? I mean, did a rock really kill them? We don't really know. Also, Alibaba now has the Daijin called Amon that's in his dagger. Now he's unaware of it, at least to my knowledge, so I'm curious to see what Amon is going to provide to Alibaba. Does he recognize him as Aladdin's decision to become a king? I believe Aladdin chose Alibaba to be a king, because that's what Amon was basically saying. So I'd like to see where that goes. Now, that ends it for my final thoughts. Now, as for what I'm going to rate this, a lot's happened. We've got a lot of closure. We definitely had fighting. 4 out of 5. I want to give this a 4.5 out of 5, but I'm not going to go that far. Definitely 4 out of 5. So, rating, final rating, 4 out of 5. Now, I don't think I'll be doing any more reviews or walkthroughs for the rest of the day, so stay tuned for tomorrow or probably Thursday for Naruto Shippuden. Yeah. But definitely comment down below, thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe above, comment, and most definitely comment. So let me know what you think about this episode. I'll try to be on Skype later on today if you guys want to hit me up. Definitely check me out on Twitter or follow me. But again, that ends it for my review and walkthrough of Magi Episode 3. Before I go, I have to say it. You can't stop the access, but you can watch the feed. I'll see you later, guys.